Welcome into an Inside Carolina postgame show. I'm Tommy Ashley. That's Sherrell McMillan. We are sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt as always. Sherrell, about as impressive a performance from North Carolina that I've seen in a long time in that second half. We'll dig into it completely. Almost 800 folks in the chat. I said we'd push over 1,000 tonight. So folks, get busy. Call your friends, call your neighbors, get them in this chat. Sherrell, your opening thoughts.
It was a big win for UNC. I mean, I know that's simplistic. I know that's the basic answer, but they hadn't won one of these in some time. I think we were talking about it. And the last time they won like a big game against a really, what we expect to be a good team or a name team was that Duke game, the Cormac Ryan game 2 years ago in Cameron. And over, since then, there's the loss to Alabama. There's multiple losses to Duke. There was a loss to Kansas. It seems like every time they played a name team, a blue blood team, they just weren't able to live up to the moment. And I think that was why there was a bit of consternation heading into this one for that very reason. And now they were able to get the win. And you could almost feel the catharsis in the Smith Center as the clock wound down and it went to 0. It was like, okay, they beat a named team. Now they've got some teams that they should, beat, that they're better than, and you can move forward. The whole quad 1 win thing, they don't have to worry about that right now in November. So it's just a good performance and kind of an announcement, honestly, to the country that North Carolina is not going to be what it was last year. They're not going to be a bunch of pushovers.
Indeed, that is one of the biggest things to me. Is in the first half, it looked similar to what we had seen last year, and then the ball started going in the basket. Everybody started stepping up to Caleb Wilson's level of intensity. I thought it was interesting. You had Caleb Wilson being the lead guy in the first half and Carolina losing. Darren Peterson for Kansas was their main guy in the second half, and Kansas sort of fell apart there when both teams played together or had everybody complimenting their stars. It were completely different ball games and completely different performances. Just a couple stats for North Carolina fans. If you're so inclined, if you hadn't looked at them already, of course, Caleb Wilson, 24-7, 4 assists to go with that. Veesaar finished with 20 points, 4 rebounds. Trimble ended up with 17. Kyan Evans with 12 after not having anything in the second half. Bogavac off the bench had 5 points in 19 minutes. Sherrell, what was impressive to me early, and this is something that you obviously covered the recruitment, you've seen him as a player, but Caleb Wilson, not only is he skilled, not only is he impressive, he plays hard, and that is the biggest thing. When you're diving on the floor, when you've got no business getting a loose ball and you get it diving on the floor, it just felt like to me in that first half, his teammates weren't really following that. Of course, they weren't shooting well either, but just sort of speak to what he brings other than the ability to put the ball in the basket, because there's so much more to this guy's game, and he is so impressive to me to watch in those other regards other than scoring.
I've told the story a few times, and for those who've heard it, I apologize, but it's a different audience. But basically, the first time I remember watching Caleb was his junior year of high school, so not quite 3 years ago. And there was someone connected with Carolina there because they were watching Drake Powell at the time, because it was a matchup between Caleb Wilson and Drake Powell. And I asked this person, I said, kind of, what do you think? And they're like, love the skills, but more than that, love the motor. Love how hard he plays. And that was as a high school junior in an AAU game that, in the end means absolutely nothing. And a lot of times with players who get that rep, especially as they ascend into top 10, top 5 players, you lose some of that energy because you start realizing, you got stuff to lose. A bruise here, a bruise there, a twist here, a twist there could cost you a lot of money. And to Caleb's credit, and I think it's his family around him, his agent, his camp, he's never lost that edge because of the things that he might lose or because he's too big or he's a superstar or anything like that. He still plays the exact same way from a motor and intensity perspective as he did that morning in AAU. So I think it's vitally important to UNC because we've talked about it, Tommy, on these podcasts the last couple of years. Hubert Davis's teams, for whatever reason in the past, they sometimes come out and sleepwalk. And If they had come out and sleepwalk, or if Caleb Wilson had come out and sleepwalk in this game in the first half, they'd have been down by they were down by 8 at halftime. They would have been down by 16 or 17 and probably not able to come back. But the fact that you have someone like Wilson who was engaged from the start, diving for loose balls, just playing hard, that's infectious, man. It's hard not to do that and match that when you see someone who, let's be frank, is making more money than you, is gonna make more money than you, has more accolades than you. When you see them doing the dirty work, you have no choice but to join along. And I think that's one of as important as the baskets are, that mentality that Caleb brings and that permeates over to his teammates is just as important as anything else.
Yeah, I mean that is the most impressive thing watching him play. And granted, we're two games into a long freshman season for him, so we'll see if it continues. I suspect it will. But just it starts off with the tip dunk and just getting on the floor, getting after it on defense. He plays, and people in the chat. Somebody in the chat said something about Jordan. He plays like he's got a chip on his shoulder. You're going against Darren Peterson. All the talk about Darren Peterson's the number one guy or whatever in the class, and Wilson's like, I'm going to show him, and it's
Well,
impressive to watch.
Well, he does have
Go
a chip
ahead.
on his shoulder, and part of it, and again, for those who don't follow recruiting, I apologize, but a part of it is, so he was on a nondescript AAU team that really wasn't going anywhere. So he switched hit before his senior year and went to a team that had the Boozers and a couple of other D1 players. And when he did that, he accepted, what we would call maybe a lower role from a scoring perspective. He was just hustle defense guy, and I think the discourse around him went to, oh, well, Caleb Wilson, he can't be your leading man, but he can be a elite utility athlete, as Rob would call it back in the day. That's what he is. And I think reading that for the last year, I've had conversations with his family, with his dad. He's kind of like, y'all are sleeping on what Caleb can be. And I said, well, yeah, he needs to get better at this and that. And he was like, there's a lot of stuff he didn't show because he didn't need to, or because that's not what the team wanted him to do. He said, but y'all will see it. And through 2 games, he wasn't wrong. I mean, there's stuff that he's doing that we didn't think, the turnaround jump shots, the face-up game, some of that stuff you thought maybe he could do that in January or February, but not game 2 of the season in the cauldron of the Smith Center against Kansas.
Yeah, when he goes baseline late in the game, gets cut off, turns around, does a turnaround fadeaway, what was it, 17-footer from the corner, I'm like, no way. And it's nothing but I mean, the kid's great. The thing to watch with him, and I'll reiterate it, we've said it multiple times already in this show, and there's 1,400 people in this chat almost, is he plays his ass off. And that is the key for North Carolina. It is way beyond just the points. It is all the extras that he does. And then guys follow. We see Carolina. But we'll go ahead, Sherrell. You got more.
No, I was just gonna say you need to go ahead and get a sponsor for the Caleb Wilson portion of the program, like the Drake May portion of the program, because it's going to be every single night. Just go ahead and get a sponsor on that, and you can just devote 5 minutes at the front to Caleb, after every game. Because even if he doesn't score 24, he's going to have 8 rebounds, or he'll have 5 blocks, or he'll have 6 assists, or whatever. He's going to make an impact, even if it's not scoring.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so if you're listening to this show, I know there's some businesses in Chapel Hill. Feel free to sponsor the Caleb Wilson portion of the show. It'll be at least 31 times, or at least 29 more times, and probably upwards of close to 40 more times this season, the Caleb Wilson portion of the show. We're talking with Sherrell McMillan on the Carolina post-game, or the Inside Carolina post-game. Carolina beats Kansas. I thought I had the score rolling through. I did not have it up there. Carolina wins 87-74. First time since 2002. North Carolina beats Kansas. First time since the 70s that North Carolina beats a non-Roy Williams coach Kansas team. First time Kansas ventures to the Smith Center, ventures to Chapel Hill at all. Just unbelievable that tonight was the first time that had happened for these 2 storied programs. Sherrell, let's dig more into it. We can talk about the first half. I think the first half for me basically was the shots didn't go in, and Veesaar was trying to play on the inside. And I understand he scored a lot of points on the inside, but let's talk about this, Sherrell. You basketball guy more than I am. He's not a post-up guy. He's a roller. He's a finisher. He's a lob finisher, and he's shot some threes. I felt like in the first half he was getting pushed around on the inside. That certainly shifted in the second half. Did you see anything that Carolina did differently offensively, or did Veesaar just step it up?
Well, I thought a big part of well, he stepped it up, obviously. I think you could tell, but I thought a big part of it was that Kyan Evans seemed to settle as UNC's lead guard. His first half was not good. There's no sugarcoating it. He didn't pass well, didn't make a shot, looked a little hesitant. So whatever Hubert Davis said to him at halftime, I think definitely impacted him. The first set, in the second half, they run a beautiful play to get a dunk for Veesaar off the pick and roll. Great pass by Evans. They did that 3 or 4 more times in the second half. And once that happened, it causes the defenders to just sag just a little bit. And then Evans got some space to start knocking down his jump shots. So I was very pleased with him. The fact that he didn't shoot well in the first half. I think he was 0 for 3 or 0 for 4, but he used his passing to get him into the flow of the game. And then once he did that, his shot came along, and that really helped UNC. So I think Evans was a big part of Veesaar playing well, but also just getting him the ball moving forward as opposed to trying to put him on the block. He's not going to be a guy, and I think you saw it in this game, who you give the ball to on the block with his back to the basket. He takes 2 dribbles and he has a jump hook. He can do that occasionally, but several times he was getting stripped. So you should just give him the ball and have him move towards the basket. And I thought that was a really good move by Hubert Davis to have him do that. And overall, I thought Hubert Davis coached well this game, honestly. The narrative, I think, had already kind of started at halftime is because Bill Self, here's a stat. So Bill Self has been a head coach since 1997, I believe, between Oral Roberts, Illinois, and Kansas. His teams have finished outside the top 50 in defensive efficiency one time, and it was his first year as a head coach at Oral Roberts. At Kansas, they've never finished outside of the top 50 in defensive efficiency under Bill Self. So he's a great defensive game planner. So I think that was definitely part of it. UNC missed some shots in the first half, but also you're going against a really good coach. But Hubert Davis did a great job of countering that in the second half. And I thought Carolina's offense, nobody scores 58 points on a Bill Self team and a half. It just doesn't happen. And so once UNC got going, it was hard to stop. So you have to credit Hubert Davis for getting his team prepared. Whatever he did at halftime, you have to credit him. And then I give a lot of credit to Wilson for the energy. But everybody played a part in the win, honestly. We can go down the list. I mean, who do you want to go to next? And they had an impact on the game.
Yeah, let's talk about Seth Trimble. I mean, he's a guy that's been there forever. He kind of is what he is offensively on the drives, but his defense, excuse me, and his getting out running. What'd you think of his game and how he stepped up? I mean, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 0 for 5 from 3. That's the only real negative there. But I mean, if Seth gives you that, if he gives you 15 to 17 a night and 6 to 8 rebounds a night, I mean, you take that and run with it every night, plus the leadership aspect of it, plus the defensive aspect of it, a pretty key factor in this one. And he had to run around and chase Peterson all night, which is a heck of an ask for anybody. And it will prove that way over the course of the season because I think Peterson's top flight. But your thoughts on Trimble?
Yeah. First off, I saw someone in the chat say I hate Hubert Davis, which I don't know where that came from, but I just want to.
I can't keep up with the chat. I'll freely admit, when I logged on, there's like 250 comments in the chat. I usually try to keep up with it. Maybe I'll go back and watch it, but yeah. So Sherrell does not hate Hubert Davis.
Yeah, I don't know where that one came from. At any rate, no, Trimble was good as well. I mean, he played 36 minutes, which was the second highest minutes on the team behind Veesaar, which your starting 5 playing 37 minutes. That's something that probably is going to have to be looked at and figured out because that's not sustainable at all. But Trimble, played a ton of minutes, and then he's chasing around who a lot of people feel is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft, one of the best players in the country. I think he might have been on one of the preseason first team All-American teams. So you're talking about a guy with that kind of pedigree, and Trimble, was able to limit him. And that's all you can do against a really good player, a really good offensive player, is just try to make it hard for him. And that Trimble made it real hard for him. And his shooting, I would say, struggled a little bit. One of the reasons is this an area he has to improve in. But also, I mean, that's taxing to chase around Darren Peterson. But he still had the energy to have, a team high 8 rebounds. And then he was able to get to the rim, pretty regularly. You like to see him finish a little bit better, but considering his defensive assignment, the minutes he played, I mean, you'll take that, like you said, that performance all year. And again, people forget he was a second leading rebounder on the team last year, behind the guy over at State. So just really impressive from Seth, all things considered. And that was a big question mark too coming into the season, was like, what can Seth give them? Now that he's more of a leader on the team, that the team is kind of, I don't want to say his, but he's at least a co-leader of the team. And I thought he did a good job.
36 minutes for Trimble. Is the guy over at State the new number 32? I was just checking.
Yeah, I wasn't. There's no shade. Vin Lubin. I was just trying to get through it real quick, because saying the guy versus Vin Lubin is a little shorter.
That is funny. No shade at all. I mean, people got to do what they got to do to help the families. Henri Veesaar, something I just noticed, Sherrell, 37 minutes. How many bingo cards was that on? That's not sustainable all season. But if he can play 30 to 35, given the struggles at the backup five, those minutes become not only necessary, but gifts for this team. Veesaar playing that many minutes, does that surprise you in a game like this?
No, not at all. Before we could do that, I got to respond to the chat. Bill Self was the head coach at Oral Roberts in 1997, and then he went to Tulsa. Okay, so I'm not making things up. Thank you. Yeah, Veesaar, man, 37 minutes. Last year at Arizona, he played, I think, 21 minutes a game. And a part of that was the first half of the season, he didn't play a ton. The second half of the season, he played a lot. But the fact that he had, I think, going into like the under 8 timeout, he only had 1 foul. So I don't know if that's good or bad, that he needs to play more aggressive, or he's really good at not fouling. I'm not sure which one it is, but either way, you'll take that. And then the fact that he just was able to finish around the basket it's so, I guess, refreshing to see that after what Carolina experienced last year, with not being able to finish around the basket, constantly getting shots blocked. He's really good in the short roll, off the pick and roll. He made some excellent reads. I think we've talked about how he's a really good passer, and he did that a couple of times in this game. But just the fact that he battled and scrapped, even though he's not the most physical player, the fact that he battled and scrapped and fought, I think, is really important. And then he showed his full range of ability by knocking down the threes. So, I mean, you couldn't ask. I'm not going to say you couldn't ask for a better center, but the way he fits with Wilson, I mean, they're going to do a lot of damage, because Kansas has size. Kansas has, athletes. They have the caliber of athlete that UNC is going to play, when they're playing SEC teams, some of the ACC teams, and Carolina dominated in the paint, honestly. So I think that's a good sign, that is repeatable. It's not a situation where, he just had a career night. He's not going to be that good the rest of the season. The things he did, he should be able to do against pretty much anyone.
Yeah, to your point, Carolina points in the paint 48-20. That is shocking. Bench points was the only real stat that Kansas led on, 21-11. Second chance points they got. Carolina out-rebounded Kansas 39-27, 16-7 on the offensive rebounds. Fast break points 14-6. Carolina had more assists than Kansas, more steals, 1 less block. Where's turnovers? Carolina had 11 turnovers to Kansas's 14. Yeah, impressive performance by
11 of those turnovers, I think, were in the first 10 minutes of the first half.
Yeah, so it was brutal in the first half.
Yeah, so they went basically 30 minutes with only 6 turnovers.
Let me tell you, I'll tell you, second half box, Carolina had 1 turnover in the second half. 1. Seth Trimble. There's the difference in the game. After, to your point, 10 of those in the first half. Veesaar with 4 of them. So Seth Trimble had 1 turnover in the second half, and that was it for Carolina. Just a complete flip, impressive flip by Carolina going into the second half. They go from down 8 to win by 13, 87-74. Sherrell, we've talked about the big names. Who else stood out for you? I thought Jaron Stevenson had a few rebounds in there and got his hands dirty, and I like to see that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, myself included, have been kind of hoping that Jaron would take the next step when it comes to aggression. With this particular roster, I think you see what Caleb Wilson can do, and you see what Henri Veesaar can do. So you don't need Jaron Stevenson to go out there and score 15 points. That's not what his role is going to be on this team. He might do it, a couple of times this season, but that's not what you need. I think what he did tonight is what you need. He grabbed a few timely rebounds, especially offensive. He knocked down a 3, and then he was just all over passing lanes, helping on defense. whatever the team needed him to do. And having that kind of 6'10" utility player who can come in and kind of be a jack of all trades will definitely, I don't see how it can't hurt, and it will definitely help UNC. So I've been pleased with, I don't know, I won't call it accepting his role, but I've been pleased with the way he's played in the role that he has at the moment. And that's going to be big for UNC because Hubert Davis, trust him. And I think Hubert Davis believes he's going to get more out of him than others have. And that's one of the reasons he was the starter when Luka didn't know he was going to play until 30 minutes before the game. He was the starter in the exhibition games. And I think it's one of the reasons you kind of look at him as the sixth man of the team, who can come in and take up some of that slack for Caleb when he needs to come out, and potentially for Veesaar if he needs to come out. But that's something that I'm sure they'll work on down the road.
Indeed. Folks in the chat asking about Luka's numbers. Luka, 5 points. Yes, 5 points. 2 of 6 from field, 1 of 3 3-pointers, 3 rebounds, 1 assist in 19 minutes. What's Luka's role on this team, Sherrell? It sounded like in your last answer you think he's a starter. I kind of like him off the bench. Hadn't had the opportunity to talk to you about it, but what do you think with Luka Bogavac?
I mean, with the way these first 2 games have gone, do you really want to mess with it this early? Like, do you want to save that maybe for a time when maybe Stevenson is struggling offensively, and you're going to get some teams who maybe don't have the length at the 3 that you would need Stevenson to defend, and then you insert Luka then? Because right now, things are kind of working the way they should. I think everybody has a role. Luka's still figuring his out. It is going to be to score some. He had a few shots that he probably wishes he had back, a couple of the step back threes. But he is a piece that will get better as he fully integrates into the team. With football, Tommy, you should know this. Jason, what did he say about Lopez coming in the spring? Over and over again.
Hold on, I didn't want to jump in on you, so I was muted. That was a problem. They needed him before spring practice.
It's hard when you haven't been around and you have spring practice and workouts and drills and everybody's getting used to each other and you're not there. Now, add that to Luka. He didn't get to the United States until early August. Now, he's been practicing with the team then, but everybody else has been practicing with the team since mid-May. So it's going to take some time for him to fully integrate. And Hubert Davis, what a wonderful problem for him to have. That there's a utility player like Stevenson that he can insert into the lineup and gain things, I think, defensively, or he can put Luka Bogavac in the game and maybe lose something defensively, but gain something offensively. So it goes back to this roster, I think, is really built solidly. It's built where it complements each other. And, there's going to be a time where they're going to need Bogavac's scoring, and maybe it's in the starting lineup, maybe it's not. I don't think it particularly matters because from everything we've seen, all these guys are pretty bought into what Hubert Davis wants to do, and they're going to try to do whatever it takes to win. And some nights for Luka, that's going to be coming off the bench and having a limited role and making the right play. Other nights, it's going to be taking 10, 12 shots and leading Carolina from the perimeter. So it's a good problem to have. I think you just kind of stay with what's working and save that for when you maybe really need it.
Indeed. Talking with Sherrell McMillan here on the Inside Carolina Postgame Show. Shout out to the 1,600 people that have been here on the live chat. We're 26 minutes in. Going to wrap it up here shortly. Want to just look at some other stats. Kansas was basically a one-man show tonight except for Tiller. Tiller, 12 points in the first half. Nothing in the second half. Ended up fouling out. He fouled out quickly too, and sort of took away Kansas's other option. Council for Kansas had 6 points, Rosario 7, but Peterson led the way with 22. There, I think Peterson's a really good player. He's not going to be able to do it on his own, and if he does, then Kansas is not going to be as good as folks expect. Badunga, I love Badunga's game. He wasn't very effective tonight. He was 4 for 9, 7 rebounds, 8 points, but I like the way he plays. Sherrell, wrap us up here. Well, let me do this. Now's the perfect time for people to join Inside Carolina's premium subscriptions, right? I mean, I don't know what else people want from coverage of North Carolina sports that Inside Carolina doesn't provide. I mean, so you go to Inside Carolina, InsideCarolina.com. You sign up for your premium subscription. Sherrell likes to talk about Johnny T-shirts, so I'm going to let him do that here in a second. But I'm going to tell you, you need to go to InsideCarolina.com. Don't Google Inside Carolina. Don't do any of that. Go to InsideCarolina.com. Sign up for a premium subscription. There's a lot of you guys in here that are probably not Inside Carolina subscribers. Join up. Get in the game. You get Sherrell's premium access to his recruiting information. You get all the football access and all that, the premium recruiting stuff there. You get the premium breakdowns from Rob Harrington and everybody on the basketball side. And you get a Johnny T-shirt discount, 10% off your order, whether it's in person or online there in the store on Franklin Street or online from your own house. You could be sitting right where I am, and you can get a Johnny T-shirt discount to deliver it right to your door. Sherrell, why is Johnny T-shirt a big deal for North Carolina fans?
It's alumni owned and operated for one, so it's Tar Heels who understand Tar Heels. And then we always want to support local businesses. If you look at Franklin Street, man, it doesn't look like it did when Tommy was in school. Doesn't look like it did when I was in school. Doesn't look like it did 5 years ago. But there's a few places that are still around, and Johnny T-shirt is one of them. So we want them to be around another 30 years. And the way to do that is to support them. And when you support them, you get 10% off as well. So who doesn't like saving money? I'll be there in about, I'm going to hit up I-85 in about, 14, 15 hours. Should be there around 1. My first stop every time I come to a game is Johnny T-shirt. I leave the deck on Franklin Street, walk over to Johnny T-shirt, see what's in there, snap a picture, do whatever it needs to do, buy a few $100,000 worth of stuff, and then head home. So yeah, Johnny T-shirt's
he's not lying. He is not lying. Johnny T-shirt, your spot for your Carolina swag, and your spot if you support Inside Carolina, you support Johnny T-shirt. It's alumni owned and operated, and like Sherrell said, you got to keep Franklin Street having some semblance of what it used to be, and Johnny T-shirt's one of those mainstays, and they are there because of people like you that support them. Shout out to everybody that's joined the chat. Shout out to Sherrell, but Sherrell, I'm going to give you the floor. What do you I tend to, so when you watch this game and you watch the second half, you're thinking, oh, this team is good. I mean, Caleb Wilson's legit. He's nasty. People talking about he's one of the best freshmen in a long, long time. This Carolina team's really good. You tend to pump the brakes either way for folks a lot. But your thoughts after watching this team's performance, the game's 40 minutes. The first half did not look great. It was the same team that played in the second half that looked very good. Your overall thoughts as they exit a big game with Kansas with a big win and go into a portion of the season where they're not going to play a ton of competition until they get to a little bit later against Michigan State and teams like that. What's the overall thought or vibe for you going into the rest of November?
Yeah, it's positive. I don't see how it couldn't be. I think one thing, Justin Jackson, who does a few podcasts with us, he does a basketball show with you. He's sometimes on Coast to Coast. One thing he said over the summer that he loved was how hard the team competed, even in those summer pickup games. And I think the difference in some of the past Carolina teams, having a rough half and this UNC team having a rough half is that it's not that they weren't competing in the first half. They just weren't making shots and they were being a little careless. So, Hubert Davis, I think his first year, for the first 15 games, he was like, energy, effort, toughness, energy, effort, toughness. I shouldn't have to coach that. Roy Williams used to say the same thing. And they're not going to have to, I think, really ever with this team. There are enough kind of dynamic personalities on the team that will make sure that that's not happening and make sure they're not loafing. I think this team really is one that's going to hold itself accountable. Even someone like Kyan Evans, who, looks kind of shy, looks like he's not going to really put up a fight, but he gets out there and he's talking and he's playing hard. Caleb Wilson, Veesaar, they all do it in their own way. So I think that was the positive, and that's a difference maybe in some of the teams who come out with their hair on fire in the second half after having played a bad first half. This team, their play wasn't because they weren't into it. So I think that's a huge thing. And then number two, I'm happy for Carolina fans. I'm happy for people who cover the team. I'm happy for the coaches because no one wanted to deal with the next 20 days of discourse that would have happened had they lost this game. That was not something anyone was looking forward to. And now they have a big win. a big non-conference win, they can go into these other games with a sense of confidence, and really trying to fine tune the things that they do well and continue to learn about each other, because it's not a finished product. Obviously, it's November, but at least this time, as opposed to last year, they're going to be building and learning each other after a big win, as opposed to a few kind of big losses. So take care of business against teams you should beat, and then kind of see what happens when you play Michigan State on Thanksgiving. That's the next kind of test, I would say. That's the next benchmark for this team, is that back to back from Michigan State to Kentucky. So we'll see what happens, but it's encouraging. I don't think they're going to play a 5 and a 4 as good as Carolina. I mean, I try not to be prisoner of the moment, but there's not many teams, if any, that have a better post combo than Veesaar and Wilson. And I think we'll see that proven out the rest of the season.
That is Sherrell McMillan preaching about the Tar Heels, preaching about Carolina's win over Kansas, 87-74. A ton of people in the chat. A ton of people care about Carolina basketball. I love the point. Obviously I have 2 students at Carolina, and they were there. So I like to see them experience a moment like in the Smith Center. That's what it's all about for Carolina basketball. Playing Kansas in the Smith Center in November. What a time to be alive if you're a Carolina basketball fan and you were in that building, or if you're watching on TV like the rest of the common folks like us. That's Sherrell. This has been the Inside Carolina Postgame. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt. Shout out to the Inside Carolina fan base. Shout out to everybody that's been in the chat. Do me a favor. Click subscribe on the YouTube channel if you haven't already subscribed. We're about to cross a big number. Might have a box of swag for whoever hits the 30K number with their subscription to the YouTube channel. Same thing on the podcast feed. Same thing on the website, InsideCarolina.com, on the On3 network. Sherrell, it's always a pleasure.
Last thing, everybody just look for the work that Trevor and Adrian do. It is great stuff.
Yes.
You'll learn a lot. I learn something every time I look at it, both from a statistical standpoint and then just from an X's and O's standpoint, and then Rob as well. So can't really just go read it. Like I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just amazing content. Rob Harrington and me and Justin Jackson on Monday nights, Coast to Coast crew, and then like you said, Adrian and Trevor breaking down film, breaking down the numbers. It's way above my head. So you learn a lot. I'm an eyeball guy. Those guys are the thinkers. You get it all at Inside Carolina, and don't let Sherrell, don't let him pass the buck too much. Sherrell's top notch too, with all his insight and what he brings to you for the recruiting side and the insight side. It's just a fantastic place to get your Carolina basketball needs at Inside Carolina. Inside Carolina in the Bowls lot tomorrow at 1:30 to 3:30 ahead of Carolina and Stanford on the football side. We'll have a post game or the day after on Sunday, and then we'll start all over again next week at Inside Carolina with the coverage you need, the coverage you want, and the coverage you can get by signing up at the website. Thanks, Sherrell.